There's somebody at the door. There's somebody at the door. There's somebody at the door.
Have you ever wondered how to make a game pass on Roblox? Have you wondered how to create a game pass in Roblox? Have you ever wondered how to make money with game passes on Roblox? So if you've been interested in wanting to know how to make a game pass to be able to monetize your game, let's say you finished with it and you're ready to start making some money, this video is for you. We're going to cover how to design game passes in a way that's not going to basically kill your player's experience, and we're also going to cover how to create them and script them into your Roblox game. So let's get started with the first thing though. Game passes are really good to get Robux, especially to keep your development going to be able to pay for your game. But it's important to understand how to design them, because a lot of people fail in this department, and then they wonder why their games aren't generating revenue, why players aren't buying their game passes, and they may see that they start losing players because they don't understand how to properly design a game pass. But that's the first thing we're going to talk about, is how to design one. So a game pass is different from a developer product. A game pass is a digital pass that can be purchased with Robux. Now what's important to keep in mind is, again, as the players are progressing, game passes should be shortcuts, not upgrades. Now, to give an example of this, say for instance we have a shooting game, and all of our players are dropped off in an arena, and they can buy different guns that they get, right? Winning rounds gives you money, you buy guns with that money. Some guns are better than others. Let's say you've got an upgraded pistol that does more damage. Now, something that we should not have is a game pass for, let's say, a bazooka or something that's just objectively better than all the other guns. That would be an upgrade. And what that would do is it would create what's called a pay-to-win atmosphere, where basically you've got this gap between players who play the game without buying the game pass and then players who buy the game pass. We never want to make it so that buying the game pass makes you better than the other players, because then you're going to start losing players because they're going to understand that there's no point in playing your game if they have to buy a game pass in order to be able to be on a level playing field with those who have purchased that game pass. I've seen a few games do this, and it's a bad idea, and in fact a lot of these games have started to die out because of this. Let me give some examples. Take Tradelands, the sailing game. The only reason it isn't really hurting Tradelands is Tradelands has two types of crafting, blacksmithing and carpentry, both of which are locked behind a Robux paywall. Now this is bad because it's cutting off a big portion of the game and requiring players to pay Robux for it. Now what's preventing this game from dying essentially is there's a trade system. So people can pay Robux to get the mallets, trade them to other players for doubloons. So you could still technically get it without having to buy the game pass. But let's say you had to. It would start turning a lot of players away. Let's take another example. Take Jailbreak, for instance. Jailbreak has the SWAT and Mafia game passes. Some of the weapons are objectively better on those game passes. And because of that, you're going to have a harder time beating somebody with the game pass, because you can't unlock those weapons for free. You have to pay Robux for them. But with those examples, it's a slight upgrade. Imagine if it was a massive one. So how should we design our game passes instead? Well, I know I just criticized Jailbreak, but Jailbreak actually is a perfect example of a great game pass, and that's the bigger duffel bag. When you're robbing banks or you're robbing anything, you have a cap of how much money you can steal. Now there's a game pass you can purchase that doubles the amount of money you can carry from those places to rob. This is an amazing game pass design-wise, because if a player doesn't have the game pass, it's not going to hurt their gameplay in any way. It doesn't make it so that certain locations can only be robbed with this game pass. No. It simply makes it to where the duffel bag game pass allows you to get money faster if you have it. So what it ends up being is a shortcut. It's not an objective thing that's going to hurt your gameplay experience if you don't own. Instead, it's just going to help speed up your gameplay experience. So some examples of good game passes that are shortcuts are things like double experience game pass, double money game pass, you earn twice as much money, things like this, depending on your game, of course. Let's say you have a couple of premium weapons that are especially good in your gun game. Well, you could sell them as game passes or sell them for coins, either way. And you can make it to where if they pay with coins, the in-game currency, it's maybe super expensive, so it's going to be very difficult for them to get it for free. But as long as that option is still there, it will keep players playing the game, and it's going to not hurt your gameplay experience. So as you're designing your game, think about what the main progression for your players is and how you can create game passes to allow shortcuts for that. Again, not objective upgrades, not stuff that's going to make you better than everybody else because you own the game pass, stuff that are shortcuts. And what you're going to find is when you do this, you're going to have less people quit your game, and you're going to have more people buy that game pass, because as people stick around and they play for a long time, they're going to become more and more likely to purchase a game pass. So when your game passes are going to help with that progression rather than make it required, so to speak, it's going to be a big boost, and you're going to notice that more people are going to buy your game passes. So let's get into how you can script a game pass for your Roblox game. So I'm here on my Creations tab, and to create a game pass, we're going to find our place right here. We're going to click the three dots, and we're going to click View on Roblox. So once you're on this page, you're going to click the three dots, and we're going to click Configure this experience. So now that we're here, we're going to click Associated Items, and from here we'll head to Passes. So I haven't created any game passes for this, so I'll start by creating a pass. Now we'll need to upload an image. I'm going to go ahead and use the default image because I don't have one set aside, but you'll want an image for this. And because you can see this from the store page, and when they try to buy it, it'll show the image here. But we'll name it, so I'll call this double XP. This pass will double your experience gain. Once we've done that, we're going to create the pass. We're going to click these three dots, and we're going to copy the asset ID. So make sure this has been copied because we're going to use this later. So we're here in Roblox Studio, and I've got this double XP button. Now what this is in Starter GUI, it's a GUI with a game pass here. We're going to go ahead and insert a script in here, a local script. I went ahead and named it controller, but you can call it whatever you'd like. And this is what's going to control our game pass. So let's go ahead and open up that script, and we're going to start by using Marketplace Service. Now this service is going to let us prompt game pass purchases to players. And I'll show you guys what I mean. We'll start by getting the service, so I'm going to make a variable for it. Marketplace Service. And we're going to use game get service, Marketplace Service. And there's a function inside of Marketplace Service that we can use that's going to give players that would you like to purchase this item prompt. So what that is it's Marketplace Service, prompt game pass purchase. Then what you need to do is you need to provide the player that you're trying to give the purchase prompt to, and then the game pass ID. So let's put this in a function, and I'll show you guys why in a minute. We're going to create a function, and I'm going to call this prompt game pass purchase. We're going to include an argument that's going to be our pass ID. And what we can do is, because this is a function, and we get a service up here for our players, we'll be able to get ourselves, since this is a local script, we can just say players.localPlayer, right? This is the player that we're going to be sending that purchase prompt to. And then we'll include this argument here, which is going to be our pass ID. And I'll show you how we rig this as well. But this is going to allow us to give them that purchase prompt. So let's navigate to our button. And do you remember how I had you earlier copy that asset ID for the game pass? Well, I'll show you what we can do with it. We're going to add an attribute and make this a number value. And we're going to call this pass ID. And what we'll do is we're going to paste that value right here. And now we've got our game pass ID attached to our button. And so since we've got it attached to our button, now all we have to do is set up a click detection for it. So I'll make a variable for it. We're going to navigate to our button. Once we've navigated to our button, we're going to bind a function to its .activated event. Then what we'll do is we'll call our function up here with its pass ID. We're going to pass exp button, get attribute, this attribute that we just set, pass ID. Now what we could do is put this in a loop that's going to loop through all of our buttons if we've got a menu. Let's say we have a grid with all of our game passes. We could run a loop and reuse the same bit of code. And because all the attributes are going to be attached like this, the pass IDs, this function can be reused for all of them. And so what this is going to do is this is going to run our Game Pass prompt. When we click this, now we're going to get the prompt. Now I already own the items since I created the Game Pass, so it's going to give me this prompt, but if I didn't, it would allow me to buy it from here. So the next step is the local script is going to give them the prompt. Now if they actually buy the Game Pass, we need to have a server script that's going to give them the item they just purchased. And so I'll show you what that would look like. Let's add a script into server script service. I'm going to call this Game Pass controller. And we're going to get our marketplace service again. Now, let's make a function for when players close a Game Pass prompt. I'm going to call this onPromptClose. And this is going to fire whenever players are given that Game Pass that prompt and it closes. Now, because this is going to fire when that prompt closes, they could either purchase the Game Pass or they could hit cancel. So we're going to have to decipher whether or not they actually bought the pass. But let's bind this to marketplace service. Marketplace service dot prompt Game Pass purchase finished whenever they close the window. And we're going to call onPromptClose. Now this is going to automatically pass some arguments. It's going to pass the player that just closed the Game Pass window, the pass ID for the Game Pass they were thinking about buying, and then a value called was purchased. This is a Boolean value. If this is true, that means they bought the Game Pass. If it's false, that means they haven't. Now, because we only want to run this code in here if they've actually purchased the Game Pass, I'm going to go ahead and end the function if they haven't. So I'll make a little gate here. We'll say if not was purchased, then return. And so that way, this function's going to end right here if they haven't purchased the Game Pass, if they just click the close button or the cancel button. So now that we know that they have purchased the Game Pass, next we need to check and make sure, or we need to basically run a function that's going to give them the item they just bought. Now, I've got a cool little method that I like to use for Game Passes, so that way I'm not having to call a bunch of specific functions, like local function give player double XP. Instead of having a bunch of functions like this, what we can do is we can just make a table and call it pass functions. And then inside of this table, it's going to be a dictionary. But all of the keys are going to be our Game Pass IDs, this little variable we've got here. Now, I had you guys copy that Game Pass ID. We're going to paste it in here too. And this is going to equal a function with the player and again a variable for the pass ID, just in case if we need it. We may not, but since this is being used as the key, we can run a quick sanity check. If not, we can just make sure that this function is actually in here first before we try to call it. And because pass ID is a number, we have to use the toString command, since that is a string. So we're going to call toString pass ID. Pass ID then, so if it's not in here, right, so if this pass ID, if this function isn't in here for some reason, first of all, we need to warn because that's a problem. So I'll say no function found for pass ID. And this is going to tell us the game pass. And it's going to give us a little warning saying, hey, there's no function in here like there should be. And then we'll just return and end this function. So now we're at the bottom of our function. The happy path follows the left. So now that we're here, we know that they purchased the game pass and that there's a function in here with the same pass ID as the pass that was just purchased. So we're going to call it. We're going to say pass functions, toString, pass ID. We're going to add parentheses. We're going to give it the player and the pass ID. This is going to run our function here. And in here we can just print our game pass was purchased. And that's about it. What you would do here is this would be your code to mess with your XP module and give them their double XP, or at least mark a box somewhere saying that they've got the double XP game pass. And that's about all there is to it. This is a super simple function, and this little method can be used for all your future game passes too. You'll just add a new function with its ID, and you're good to go. And you can even add another button down here for another game pass, and just attach another connection to it. But that's how you run purchases for your game pass. That's how you're able to set them up so that players can buy stuff in your game, and you can go ahead and get started earning money from your Roblox game. Get that Robux, bro. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you want to see more content like this or more tutorials like this, let me know in the comments. If you have any optimizations or changes to the code I wrote, feel free to let me know.